Hello, my friends. Welcome to my corner. What you're about to see is a collaborative effort. My friend Ralph and I got together and composed a list of 100 essential films. So the first question that you may have is, Jorge, what do you mean by essential? Well, it's quite simple. Essential means, when you say the word essential, right? What you have If you look up the word, it says here that essential means absolutely necessary, extremely important, or fundamental or central to the nature of something or someone. The fact is, my friends, that the word essential is quite arbitrary in this case and on purpose. I was telling Ralph, something that we can do is we can put together a lot of lists and we can say 100 essential films, 100 indispensable films, 100 films that you should see, 100 films that are absolutely necessary for the salvation of your soul, etc., etc. So you see, the possibilities here are really endless. So when we say 100 essential films, actually what we mean is just 100 films that you should check out. We didn't have a lot of parameters or a lot of limitations here, but there was one thing that we said, and that was that, of course, he was going to choose 50 films and then I was going to choose 50 films. And if we found that there was a filmmaker that was featured twice, we would only choose one film. So one film per director or per filmmaker. So 100 essential films, that's what I want to share with you today. Let's go to Letterboxd and let's check it out.
Okay, so here we go. Look at this wonderful image that we have here. If you look at my Letterboxd account, I cannot do this because I have just a basic account. But anyway, let me show you what we have in this list right here of 100 essential films. This is a chronological arrangement of the list. So you can see we're going to start with Metropolis and we're going to go all the way to some more recent films that I'm going to show you in a minute. So I chose Metropolis, but it was not part of my original list. I added to it later on. I know that I did not choose Casablanca, even though I did a video on that. So if you're interested, please watch one of my least popular videos because it is an option right there. I am a big fan of the Marx Brothers. Okay, they always make me laugh. Some of their movies, of course, are better than others. And if I had to choose one, I would say that Duck Soup is probably their masterpiece. As you know, there's not a lot of plot going on in their movies. It's kind of loose. It's more about situations and of course about the characters and their personalities and all that. And also, very importantly, their love of music, because music is always a part of their films. I had to go with Ugetsu for Misoguchi. Okay, and then when it came to Kurosawa, that was one of the directors in which we had, we both had a different movie by him, and we decided to go with The Seven Samurai. But another movie that we mentioned that was, very, very good and representative of his work is Redbeard. Redbeard is definitely one of my favorite Kurosawa movies. I think I had chosen Ikiru. That was my initial choice, but we changed it and we went with Seven Samurai, which is very good also. Then Diabolique, many of these you will see, they really require no comments because you have seen them in my video on my Criterion collection, like Diabolique, like the Burmese Harp. Ralph mentioned An Actor's Revenge as another very good Kon Ichikawa movie, so I really recommend that one. Now, some movies here do require some kind of a comment, and you probably know what I'm talking about here. Number 8, right? Plan 9 from Outer Space. Really? Yeah, I take responsibility for that, and I will say this. I cannot remember another movie that made me laugh as much as this one did, and I really appreciated that. After that, I started looking for other Ed Wood movies, and I enjoyed them very much, primarily because I laughed so much. And I know that that probably was maybe, right? Not the intention of the filmmaker, but that's another story. We don't really care about that. So yeah, I decided to include that one. Then 12 Angry Men, I am pretty sure that I did not choose that one, but I will say this. I have a list of, I think it's like 250 favorite movies or something like that. And I pulled many of my choices from that list. This was one choice that I did not pull from it, but it is in my original list. So I was really happy to see that one included here. Wild Strawberries was a compromise between Wild Strawberries and Persona. Okay, so I had included Persona, but honestly, Wild Strawberries is much more easy to follow, if you will. It's also more representative of Bergman. Persona is a little bit, a little bit more extreme. I guess that's the best word that I can come up with at the moment. So cinematically, I think Persona is fantastic, but I really like Wild Strawberries as a story. Then we have, of course, a Hitchcock here, which we went with Vertigo. Jigoku, this great film by Nobuo Nakagawa. I highly recommend it if you're interested in depictions of the afterlife, and in this case, of course, hell, because that is the title of the movie. Rocco and His Brothers is a really good movie. Great Italian cinema. Okay, the story of a family. I really like it. So this is one that I have probably seen it only once, but I want to watch it again. True of course, is difficult, very difficult for me to choose one. I would probably go with Stolen Kisses or The 400 Blows, but Shoot the Piano Player is really an excellent film also. Harakiri, I had this in my mental list to watch for many years, but I watched it primarily because it was part of Roger Ebert's great movies. I've been trying to get through that list of Roger Ebert's for quite a few years now, and I have found most of them. I think I'm probably missing like maybe 13 or 12 titles or something like that, but I need to find a way to watch them. Those, more difficult to find films like The Hairdresser's Husband, for example, I could not get a hold of that. So I'm trying, I'm little by little I'm getting to those films of his great movies list that I'm missing. Also, we talked about Late Spring. We talked about Tokyo Story. Of course, great films, objectively speaking. Once again, there's that word objective versus subjective. Um, but we both really liked An Autumn Afternoon. We think it's great. It's like a culmination of his work, so that's why we included that one here. Lawrence of Arabia is a film that I need to rewatch, I'll be honest with you. It's one of those films that I think are great, that are excellent. You kind of have to accept that. But at the same time, when I watched it, I did not really understand why it was considered to be so amazing. So obviously, there's something that I need to do on my part about that because just like books, there are movies that you judge, and then there are other movies that judge you. Of course, we always are entitled to our opinion and everything, but there are some films that are considered to be masterpieces, and I feel that this one I do need to watch again. Of course, the photography, you know, uh, the cinematography, all of that is just amazing, and the acting, right? The epic scope and all that. But I feel that I do need to watch it again to fully appreciate it, or to get a better appreciation of it. Eight and a Half, of course, by Fellini. L'Immortel would be Alain Roquerier, so I need to watch that one. I have not seen it. And then we have by Teshigahara, his collaboration with Kobo Abe, Woman in the Dunes, which I liked. I have seen Woman in the Dunes, I've seen The Face of Another, Pitfall, And then I believe there's a film version of The Ruined Map, also by Kobo Abe, but I have not had the chance to watch that one yet. We have an example of the Giallo genre, which is Blood and Black Lace. I highly recommend it. I watched this one maybe about a year ago or a little bit, before that on Ralph's recommendation. So it's great. And Hamlet, of course, is the um, Russian version of Hamlet. Okay, not the Laurence Olivier, though I like it very much. I also like very much Kenneth Branagh's version, but here I'm talking about the one by Kosintsiev. So really, if you get the chance to watch that movie, I highly recommend it. I chose Faster Pussycat Kill Kill by Russ Meyer. I really like this movie. I think it's accessible. Meyer. Not that I've seen many films by him, honestly, okay? But I thought it was interesting. I thought the possible interpretations that you could have of it were quite ample. So that's one of the reasons why I decided to include it here. And then, of course, it was very difficult to choose one by Godard, right? We decided to go with Pierrot Le Fou. And I think that's a very good choice. Now, about Jacques Tati, Ralph was telling me that he really liked Mon Oncle, my uncle, right? I don't know. I love that movie. Okay, I love everything by Jacques Tati. But Playtime, for some reason, it stayed with me, very vividly. I can see that set that they built. It's like they almost built an entire city. So I think I guess you would say the logistic aspect of it was what struck me. So that's why I decided to go with that one. We have, of course, 2001. Memories of Underdevelopment by Tomás Gutiérrez Alea from Cuba. Really good. There are elements there of Godard also. It's based on a novella by Edmundo Desnoyes, I think is his name. I will correct that if I am wrong, but I'm just, speaking from memory right here. Pasolini, Teorema was my choice. Okay, so I take responsibility for that. I think there is something good in most of the Pasolini films that I have seen, if not in all of them, There is only one film by Pasolini that I have not seen yet, and that is, of course, Salo. Okay, I have to find the right time to put myself through that experience, but I think Teorema is allegorical, right? So it has that dimension to it. I also liked the Pigsty or the Pigpen also very much, which is kind of already going in that direction as Salo with later on, right? But anyway, that's the choice right there. Once Upon a Time in the West, of course, great film. Also epic in its scope. And I showed you this one in my Criterion Collection video. I really like Kes by Ken Loach. So if you got the chance to experience that movie, it's very good, very well done, and just a very poignant story. Investigation of a Citizen Above Suspicion is really one of those classics that are, I would say, I'm going to use the word neglected. This one won an Academy Award for what was called at that time Best Foreign Language Picture. So, it really deserves a watch, and it's in the Criterion Collection. Five Easy Pieces, the movie that Roger Ebert almost said that it began and it inaugurated the independent film, what we today call independent films. I really liked it, and I thought Jack Nicholson's role in it was very well done. Caliber 9 is a movie that I need to watch. I have not seen that one. And then by Jodorowsky, I had chosen Santa Sangre primarily because of the emotional effect that it had on me. That ending, okay? I remember, and I don't really cry during movies. It's very rare that that happens to me. It has happened maybe, less than 10 times in my entire life, but I was almost crying at the time that I finished watching Santa Sangre. But then, talking about it, we have to say really that the Holy Mountain is probably the culmination also, I'm going to use that word again, of Jodorowsky's poetics, right? So it is really a very good example of what he does and what he intends to do with film. The Spirit of the Beehive, I have shared with you my ideas on that previously, not specifically on the movie, but I have mentioned it many times as one of my favorite films. So that's why I decided to put it here. I need to watch The Man Who Sleeps and I need to read the novella. So I'm gonna do that in the future, and I'm waiting for that experience. By Buñuel, this is my favorite, and Ralph also mentioned The Exterminating Angel, as another possibility. That's a great film too from his Mexican cycle of films. And also, of course, the discrete charm of the bourgeoisie is also tremendously important. But I like the structure of the Phantom of Liberty, so that's one of the many reasons why I decided to include it here. I also love the Enigma of Kaspar Hauser. I don't know, it's just I prefer to watch this rather than Aguirre, The Wrath of God, or Fitzcarraldo, though I see the greatness of those films also, but this is the one that I decided to go with. Deep Red, another movie that I need to watch. Then Taxi Driver, of course. The Man Who Fell to Earth is one of my favorite films by Nicholas Roeg, and also a very good novel by Walter Tevis. Not many people read it, but it's definitely worth your time if you like, that type of literature. For Tarkovsky, another difficult choice because there are so many options that we could go with, but we decided that Stalker was the one to go with. And then Friday the 13th is my choice, really. Ralph mentioned Mario Bava, okay? He also mentioned Halloween, and I know that Friday the 13th was basically inspired by Halloween. The filmmaker said, "Oh, look at this film, Halloween. It's making lots of money. Let's do one like that." So I do know that. But I really like Friday the 13th because of the setting and because of the plot twists, right? So that's one of the reasons why I put it there. Have you seen My Dinner with Andre? Okay, I'm gonna tell you what it's about, and then I want you to find a copy and watch it. Okay, it's about two guys who are having dinner and having a conversation. That's it. But please don't let that keep you from watching this movie. This is it's really an amazing film, and it's one of my favorites ever. I put Koyaanisqatsi as an example of that poetic visual film style with no plot, no narrative to it. So it's a movie that I've seen only once, but uh, in a way, I don't want to watch it again because I want to keep that impression, that first impression. You know when you do that? So yeah, Blade Runner. This one, the new one, was very good too. And then this is a film that I need to watch by the director of Hausu, his motorbike, Her Island. Okay, so I'm one of those people who has only seen Hausu by Obayashi. So I need to explore his work a little bit more. And I want to do that, right, based on that movie that I saw. For Cronenberg, I had chosen Videodrome, but we decided that The Fly was probably a better option here in terms of the story, too. Man Facing Southeast, of course, I am responsible for that one because it's probably my favorite film from Argentina. Okay, like if you asked me, okay, what is the film from Argentina that you believe everyone outside of Argentina should watch? And I would go with Man Facing Southeast, definitely. I did a video on that, and it is to this day my most popular video on YouTube. It's in Spanish, but it has English subtitles. So if you're interested, I invite you to watch it if you have not watched it already. And by the way, that to me, the fact that that is my most popular video was a complete surprise. I just did a video, started my cycle of Cine Argentino or Argentine cinema with that one because I thought it was a good movie to begin the cycle with, and it ended up being quite a success in terms of the viewing. We have Blind Chance by Kieślowski, okay? Because Decalogue is really not a film, okay? That would be cheating. So that is the only reason why Decalogue is not here and we have Blind Chance. Then by Wim Wenders, I really like Wings of Desire. That was my favorite film by him. I know that if you watch this movie, you have basically only half of the story. You would have to continue with Far Away So Close. I liked Far Away So Close, but I think Wings of Desire is a little bit more powerful, at least in my experience. But of course, you want to watch the other one if you get the chance, so that you have the complete story right there. Akira, as an example of one of the examples that we have here of anime, right? Very, to me, a life-changing experience, really, watching that film. Very surprising to me. Then Mystery Train by Jim Jarmusch as an example of that non-linear structure that Tarantino adopted later also and kind of built upon. The Cook, the Thief, his wife and her lover are one of those cinematic experiences. To describe this as a movie or as a film is kind of unfair. You just have to call it a cinematic experience. It's like art, like I mean, all of this is art, but you know what I'm saying, right? It's like a painting. It's like watching a painting come to life. The use of color, right? The I would say Brechtian technique, really, that reminds you that you're watching a movie and it's part of the process, right? So it's an experience. It's not for everybody, but I would say, definitely it's a movie that needs to be seen. Cemetery Man, another movie that I need to watch. I have not seen that one. I have by Ang Lee, Eat, Drink, Man, Woman. This one was my choice. And then by Zhang Yimou, I have To Live. I really liked this story. Shanghai Triad was another favorite of mine by Zhang Yimou. Um, Pulp Fiction, right? I felt like that needed to be included in our list by Tsai Ming Liang, Vive l'amour, which is a classic, and it's probably one of the most popular ones, right? There are other movies by him that are really good, and that deserve our attention. But this one was the one that kind of put him in the map. So that's why we went with that one. Underground, right? That is a film that you need to watch. So that's all I'm gonna say. It's really long, but it's one of those movies that just absorb you. You don't feel like you're watching a very long movie. So I um, I urge you to watch Underground. Another difficult choice, of course, was Wong Kar-wai because there are so many great films by him, and we went with Fallen Angels. Then we have 12 Monkeys, classic. Okay, I think I did not choose this one. This one was another example. Yes, another example of those movies that I had on my list, but I had not included here. So I'm really happy. I was very pleased to see that Ralph had included it because, yeah, we needed that one. Heat, great example of a thriller, right? Then we have here, let me check out the title because it's I do not know how to read that, but Swallowtail Butterfly. That is another film that I need to watch. And Children of Heaven is really one of I just noticed that the title for Swallowtail Butterfly is there, so I apologize for that. My eyes are not very good today. Children of Heaven is just a very touching movie. You know, one of those movies that stay with you emotionally, right? From Iran, right, by Majid Majidi, one of my favorite directors, for sure. Hanabi, I have that. I just got it from my library, so I'm probably going to watch it sometime this week if I have time to do that. And Dark City is really another one of those visions, just cinematic visions. Really amazing film. I want to watch it again. I have a copy somewhere here, so I'm going to be doing that also, you know, one of these days. I was joking with Ralph. I told him we needed to have something here with Jennifer Connelly, right? So I'm glad that he decided to put this here because otherwise it would have been really criminal, if you ask me. The Truman Show, a classic, needs no comment really. I am sure you have seen it because it is considered to be one of the greatest movies ever made. Afterlife by Hirokazu Koreeda, okay? We mentioned other possibilities also, like Our Little Sister. That is a very good movie. So, Like Father, Like Son, another one that is very good. Most of the movies by Koreeda I have really enjoyed. One of the movies by him that did not really reach me the way that I was expecting to was Maboroshi. So very interesting because I really loved the premise, but for some reason it just didn't really catch my attention that much. Then of course we have The Matrix here, Fight Club, right? So all of these are. I think Fight Club was. Yeah, no, that was not my choice, but it was included in my longer list. Audition is one of those movies that I have not seen, and that I think, I was telling Ralph that there are a couple of movies there in our list that I have not seen and that I am pretty sure are maybe too much for me. He says, no, watch it. You know, it's a great filmmaker, so I am going to give it a shot. But it's one of those movies that, maybe for me, I have to go with, I have to be careful, The Talented Mr. Ripley, I've seen stories about this character, but not this one, this adaptation in particular, right? So I need to watch this one. I've seen the one with John Malkovich, which I thought was very good. And I believe the reason why I saw that was because it was also part of Roger Ebert's list. Yi Yi, I have shared my ideas with you on that in my Criterion Collection video. So once again, one of my favorite movies ever, right? Without a doubt. Eureka, I also need to watch. In the Mood for Love. Oh, hold on. How did this happen? Amazing. So, okay, so Wong Kar-wai somehow managed to enter our list twice, which I am completely okay with, right? But we have Fallen Angels, and we also have In the Mood for Love. Okay, we have space there to put another movie in the list. We would have to decide between those two. That is fantastic. Okay, great. So Battle Royale, I have not seen, so I'm also looking forward to that one. Donnie Darko. Okay, if you want one of those movies that actually make you consider reality from a different perspective and kind of just think about, um, how fragile the world around us is, that is an example of that. Waking Life, also great philosophical movie, so that's one of the reasons why I included that by Linklater instead of another option like, Before Sunrise or Boyhood or any of those. Amélie, Great movie about magic, right? Great magic realism type of movie with fantastic narrator, right? So that's another film that many people have seen, but if you have not, please check it out because I'm pretty sure you're going to find something there that speaks to you. For David Lynch, I had chosen, let me see, I don't even remember what I chose. Probably Blue Velvet. I think that's what I went with. Um, but we decided to go instead with Mulholland Drive. So, which I think is a great choice. It's very complex, right? Typical of David Lynch. Spirited Away, we had to include also something by Miyazaki. I think I had chosen Howl's Moving Castle, but then I was like, okay, I can see it. Yeah, Spirited Away really is, a great film. I still call Howl's Moving Castle my favorite by him, but I can see why Spirited Away is more important. It was a tremendous step forward for anime, or maybe not for anime, but just for anime's reception in the rest of the world. Let's put it that way. My Sassy Girl is a movie that I've been wanting to watch for a very long time because a student of mine who was from Korea actually recommended it, but I have never had the chance to watch it yet. So, it's kind of like one of my priorities in my mental list of films to watch. And then, of course, Irreversible is another one of those movies that I was saying, maybe this is a little bit too much for me. Okay, so it's in my future somewhere there, but we'll see when I watch it. Old Boy, interestingly, I have seen. Okay, and I really loved it. Great. It's also, many times described as a revenge movie, but it's so much more than that. So, yeah, a little bit difficult to watch, of course, but very, very well done. Then, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is a movie that I like because, once again, of its philosophical implications. So it's one of those films that make you think about, what would our life be like all of a sudden if we had the possibility or the opportunity to erase some of our memories? Would that be a good idea? I like to consider those questions. So that's a great film to include in this list. Then we have Three Iron by Kim Ki-duk. Okay, I agree with including that one instead of some of his other movies. Vital, another movie that I would probably, try to. I have to be in the mood for something like that, so we'll see when I get the chance to watch it. Then The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. I'm between that one and Wolf Children when it comes to Hosoda. Okay, but I think structurally speaking, and maybe in terms of the story, this one has a bit of a more fantastic element to it, so I can see why it appeals, or it could appeal to more people. And then, of course, it's also very difficult to choose one movie by Shinkai, right? Makoto Shinkai. I mean, so many of his films are great. Everything literally that I have seen by him, I have really liked. I decided to go with 5 centimeters per second, and then Ralph agreed with this. Okay, so we were like, yeah, this is one of his movies that are really well made and just excellent, though it doesn't get as much recognition or as much attention as some of his other movies. I need to watch Love Exposure, okay, and I also need to watch this one, Uncle Bunmi, Who Can Recall His Past Lives. Ralph is really enthusiastic about this one, so it is also, something that I'm planning to watch in a near future. The Tree of Life, my favorite movie by Terrence Malick. Okay, Days of Heaven is also very good. So many of his movies are just, you know, very well made, and they have his signature. When you watch a movie by Terrence Malick, they almost don't need even to tell you that it's a Terrence Malick movie. You just watch the camera work and the approach and the narration and all that. In all of the different types of movies that he has made, like The Thin Red Line, To the Wonder, so many of them, and A Hidden Life, all of those, and you can tell that it's a movie by him. So Badlands, they're just amazing. So I think when I think of him, I think of Tarkovsky, I think of Kubrick, because they are these filmmakers who didn't make many movies, but the movies that they made are very good. Alps by Yorgos Lanthimos. I know that most people talk about Dogtooth, but watch this one. This one is very interesting. It's about a group of people who become surrogates for, if somebody loses a member of their family, right? They call these people, and one of them becomes a surrogate for that uh, person that has been lost. So very interesting situation right there, very interesting premise. So That is one of my favorite movies. The Great Beauty by Paolo Sorrentino, right? So it's a classic. It also got the Academy Award, and great character study. So definitely watch that one if you get the chance. And we did have to have a Wes Anderson film here, which is The Grand Budapest Hotel. And I think that is a very good film to choose as a representation of what Wes Anderson's um, artistic powers are like. And I am just noticing here that there's another filmmaker who managed to sneak another film into our list, which is Hirokazu Koreeda, because here we have our little sister also. So Ralph, I guess each one of us can choose another movie, and we can decide which one to leave out. So we have Wong Kar-wai and Hirokazu Koreeda as the great, directors who managed to get two films into our list, which I think it's wonderful. Right Now, Wrong Then, okay, by Hong Sang-soo. Great filmmaker. He has made so many movies, and there are so many of them that are very good that it's also difficult. The Day He Arrives is a very good movie by him. Um, I can't think of the others right now, but I can tell you that Claire's Camera, that's another one that I really liked. But this one is very good because it gives you different versions of a same story. So I guess you could say it's kind of in dialogue with Blind Chance, and with that other movie that is very similar to Blind Chance, whose title I do not wish to recall. But you know what I'm saying, right? So great, great filmmaker, and this is a great example of his style and of his poetics. Arrival is one of the most intelligent, thought-provoking, quote-unquote sci-fi films that I have seen in my entire life, based of course on the short story Stories of Your Life by Ted Chiang. Please read the story, read the book, read anything you can get your hands on by Ted Chiang, and watch this movie if you have not seen it, because it is really amazing. And then to close our list, we have, of course, Parasite. I don't think I need to say anything about this movie, but it is really just mind-blowing and engrossing and complex and thought-provoking and challenging and critical, and I don't know, so many other adjectives. I could keep going on this one. So that's our list of 100 essential films.
So that's it, 100 essential films with some comments on them that I hope you enjoyed. Did you see any of your favorite films featured here? Are there any films that you would include, any films that you would leave out? Please let me know. If you have any comments, questions, recommendations, recipes, confessions, prophecies, anything, you know that I'm always happy to hear them and to respond to them. That was once again 100 essential films. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for stopping by and have a wonderful day.